all, and welcome to Module 5. This week we will be looking at Chapter 4 of the 2010 User-Friendly Handbook for Project Evaluation. Chapter 4 covers the evaluation process, carrying out the study, and reporting. In this presentation, we will look at the following steps after a design has been developed. This includes conducting the data collection, analyzing the data, reporting the findings, and disseminating the information. Let's take a look at data collection. You must review your school system's rules and procedures for collecting data on students, teachers, or projects. Before that data is collected, make sure to identify the proper procedures and address them as soon as possible before you develop your proposal. The needs of the participants must be considered. If they are participating, they should know why the data is being collected and how the results will be used. Data collectors must be carefully trained and supervised. For one, the training should include providing the data collectors information about culture and rules of the community where they will be interacting with people so they can communicate clearly with the participants. Evaluations need to include procedures to guard against possible distortion of data because of well-intended but inappropriate coaching of respondents. And biases or perceived biases may also compromise the credibility of the findings. Try to get data from as many members of your sample as possible. The validity of your findings depends on the selected sample. Make sure to follow up with individuals who are not responsive, send out surveys 2 or 3 times if needed, and a response rate of 70% is considered to be high quality and recommended for your study. Data gathering should cause as little disruption as possible. Be sensitive to the schedules of your participants. Analyzing the data. This process includes checking the raw data, conducting initial analysis, conducting on the evaluation plan, conducting additional analysis based on the initial results, and integrating and synthesizing findings. Look at the raw data. After receiving it, it is important to check for responses that may be out of the ordinary. If you find that there are a problem, consider throwing out or eliminating the question. Conduct an initial analysis on the evaluation plan. This involves coding and entering the data. This is done with quality control and verifications in mind. Conduct initial analyses based on the initial results. This involves conducting a second set of analyses to address the questions that are brought up during the initial analysis. Integrate and synthesize findings. The last step is to present the findings, to look at the big picture, and to come up with conclusions based on the data received. Reporting the findings. These usually include 6 major sections: background, evaluation, study questions, evaluation procedures, data analyses, findings, and conclusions and recommendations. Background section describes 7 different things: the needs or problems, a literature review, participants, stakeholders, the objectives of the project, activities and components, the location and longevity of the project, the resources used for the project, and the expected measurable outcomes. For procedures for the evaluation, the report describes the types of data collected, the instruments for data collection, and the following qualities: groups that participated in the study, how those groups were selected, were they in the sample representative of the total population, does the sample consist of volunteer participants or did they come from a sampling strategy, and were there any control groups. Findings usually include the results of the analysis. Findings are usually organized by the evaluation question, All evaluation questions are addressed even if the data is inconclusive, and any limitations to the validity of the findings are also included. Also, visuals to complement the narrative portion of the findings are encouraged. Conclusions and recommendations. All statements relate to the evaluation questions and goals of the project or program. Recommendations for further evaluation of other conducting similar programs or projects are sometimes included as well. Most reports include at least one of the following: an abstract or an executive summary. How do you develop an evaluation report? Compile the report throughout the evaluation process as information is collected. Consider how the information from the report will be shared. Don't clog the report with information about inconclusive findings. Consider the audience of the report when deciding the format. Ask colleagues to provide feedback on assessing report clarity, assessing report completeness, examining the argument presented, and challenging the interpretation of the results. Finally, disseminating the information. This is the final stage in project evaluation. Planning for dissemination should start at the beginning of developing a project. Keep in mind the audience and their needs for information. Make a list of the different audiences to share your findings with. It should be similar to those in your stakeholder group. And the list should include the funding source, potential funding sources, others involved, community members, and members of the business or political community. Areas of consideration include: what will the various groups need to know, and what is the best manner for providing information for them. For NSF report requirements, a TA form will find a report with technical details, an executive summary, a connection to the overall goals of the program, how your accomplishments inform or relate to those goals, identifying contributions to overall research, and identifying contributions to knowledge base in your area of investigation. For your community report, it should be presented in a less formal and detailed fashion and include minimum technical detail. This should be in-person presentations with interactive discussions. You should share results and help stakeholders understand the results and explain to the stakeholders what they might do with those results. These can be in many forms, including a newsletter, a fact sheet, or a short journalistic article. Reporting tips. Be careful using strong technical language and use caution when presenting data that relies on tentative statistical results. Newcomer and Works advise that a distinction between statistical and practical importance may be too much to provide to high-level decision makers. Instead, only findings that are of practical importance should be presented. Other sharing strategies include presentations at conference meetings and packaging your product for use. Use this table at the end of the section on page 49 to help summarize formal reports. Your discussion question: which step in the evaluation process do you think is most important and why? Conducting the data collection, analyzing the data, reporting the findings, or disseminating the information? Post your answer under the Module 5 discussion.